is already done. Now, apologize.
Hey y'all, this Nunu. I apologize for going live on Rika. I ain't had no business doing all that. My page been blocked, so that's why I'm going live.
Imagine scrolling through Facebook on a Thursday morning, coffee in hand, expecting to see birthday posts and vacation photos. Instead, you witness a woman begging for her life in real time. You watch her get shot. You hear her scream. You see the blood. This isn't a movie trailer or a fictional horror scene. This actually happened on April 12, 2018, when thousands of people became unwilling witnesses to a murder that unfolded live on their screens. Most kept watching. Some recorded it. Others shared it. But almost no one called for help. The woman bleeding out on camera wasn't just another statistic or clickbait content. She was Rannita Williams, a 27-year-old mother of 3 children who called her Nunu. She had dreams, fears, and people who loved her. And on that morning, she became the victim of one of the most disturbing crimes ever broadcast on social media. Her killer made sure the world was watching. April 12, 2018 started like any other Thursday in Shreveport, Louisiana. Kids were getting ready for school. People were heading to work, and social media feeds were filling up with the usual morning chatter. The sun was shining on Natalie Street, a quiet residential area where neighbors knew each other's names and children played in front yards. But at 11:07 that morning, the peace shattered. Gunshots rang out from a modest home, sending neighbors diving for cover and frantically dialing 911. What they didn't know was that the horror unfolding inside the house was being broadcast live to Facebook users across the country. Rannita Williams was trapped inside with a man who had already decided she was going to die. He had planned it that morning. He had bought the bullets. He had retrieved the gun. And now, he was forcing her to perform one final, humiliating act before he pulled the trigger. Rannita Williams wasn't supposed to die that day. She was supposed to pick up her kids from school, maybe grab groceries, and continue building the life she was fighting so hard to create. Friends and family knew her as Nunu, a woman who lit up rooms with her smile and would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. She worked hard to provide for her 3 children, navigating the challenges of single motherhood with grace and determination. Her mother, Anita, describes her as someone who always put family first, even when it meant sacrificing her own needs. Rannita had dreams beyond Shreveport, plans that extended far past that Thursday morning. But those dreams collided with the rage of a man who couldn't accept that she had moved on with her life. Jonathan Robinson had other plans for Rannita that morning, plans that involved a rifle, social media, and an audience of thousands who would watch her final moments unfold in real time. Right now, you're about to witness the same horror that thousands scrolled past like it was entertainment. People watched Rannita Williams get murdered and then went back to liking cat videos and arguing about politics. They treated her death like disposable content, something to consume and forget. If you're here to actually honor Rannita's memory and learn something that could save lives, hit that subscribe button. Show me you're different from those digital vultures who watched a mother die and did nothing. Comment below and tell me which warning sign you'll never ignore again. Or maybe you're just another digital bystander who thinks murdered mothers are just content for your timeline. Maybe you believe women like Rannita deserve to be forgotten once the shock value wears off. Go ahead and comment below why you think a mother's life isn't worth your subscription. Tell us why domestic violence victims don't deserve your attention. Because what happened next will haunt you forever. 3 hours after the gunshots stopped echoing through Natalie Street, 37-year-old Jonathan Robinson sat across from Shreveport police investigators in a sterile interrogation room. His hands were cuffed, his clothes still smelled like gunpowder, and Rannita Williams was dead. Most killers in his position would be demanding lawyers, claiming self-defense, or spinning elaborate lies about what happened. But Robinson did something that left seasoned detectives speechless. He started talking, and he didn't stop for 37 minutes. What came out of his mouth during that recorded confession wasn't the rambling of a man who had snapped in a moment of rage. It wasn't the desperate pleading of someone who claimed it was an accident. Instead, investigators heard the calm, calculated words of a man who had planned every single detail of Rannita's murder from the moment he opened his eyes that morning. Within the first 2 minutes, they told him he'd be charged with second-degree murder. His response chilled them to the bone. "I think I need to be charged with first-degree murder," Robinson said, his voice steady and matter-of-fact. The investigators exchanged glances. Suspects don't usually upgrade their own charges, especially not to ones that could put them on death row. "Why would you say that?" the detective asked, leaning forward in his chair. Robinson's answer came without hesitation. "Because I planned it. I knew what I was fixing to do." Those words hung in the air like a death sentence, not for Robinson, but for any hope that this was a crime of passion or a tragic accident. He wasn't claiming temporary insanity or emotional distress. He was confessing to premeditated murder with the same tone most people use to order coffee. The detective pressed further, asking what happened when Robinson stormed into Rannita's home. His response revealed the twisted psychology behind the Facebook Live broadcast. "I told her to go live and apologize to her." When asked to who, Robinson replied, "My girl." Robinson then walked investigators through his morning routine like he was describing a trip to the grocery store. He woke up that Thursday with murder on his mind and methodically prepared for what he called his plan. His first stop wasn't Rannita's house. It was a Shreveport casino. "What did you do while you were there?" the investigator asked. "I gambled a little bit, trying to clear my mind," Robinson answered. Think about that for a moment. This man was sitting at slot machines and card tables, surrounded by people enjoying their morning, while plotting to kill the mother of 3 children. He was clearing his mind before committing murder, the same way someone might meditate before a job interview. After the casino, Robinson drove to his aunt's house. He knew exactly where to find what he needed because he had hidden it there himself. Under the house, wrapped and waiting, was the rifle he had bought off the street. The weapon that would end Rannita's life was already in his possession, just waiting for the right moment. But Robinson wasn't done preparing. A gun without ammunition is just a piece of metal, and he had specific plans for those bullets. His next stop was a local pawn shop, where he calmly purchased 40 rounds of ammunition. 20 bullets in one box, 20 in another. The investigator asked the question that revealed the true scope of Robinson's planning. "Why did you buy 2 boxes?" Robinson's answer exposed the full horror of his intentions. "Because I wanted to have a shootout with the police." This wasn't just about killing Rannita Williams. Robinson had planned a war. He wanted to murder her, then engage in a gun battle with law enforcement officers who would respond to the scene.
Accused killer is behind bars in Shreveport after a shooting during a standoff. He is also accused of shooting a police officer who is recovering from a gunshot wound. KSLA News 12's Jeff Farrell breaks down a chain of events during a very long and, for some, emotional day.
A tragedy unfolded in Shreveport's Caddo Heights neighborhood when police say an alleged gunman, 36-year-old Jonathan Robinson, fatally shot a woman reportedly being held against her will inside a house on Natalie Street. Authorities say Robinson allegedly shot a Shreveport police officer in the wrist as well before being taken into custody.
It was more than 10. It was 10 at first. They started shooting back at each other. It was ongoing, so it was about anywhere from 20 to 30 shots.
Medics took both victims to University Health Hospital, where Caddo coroner vehicles soon arrived for the woman. As for Jonathan Robinson, officers first took him to the Shreveport City Jail. That's when they say he damaged a water pipe, causing the cell to flood with water. After that disruption, police moved him to the Caddo Correctional Center.
I'm at the house. I'm at the house.
People could be seen running away from the perimeter of the scene several times during the standoff after either hearing shots fired or a loud boom. An electrician had been on a ladder outside a house when the standoff began next door.
When I got down on the ladder, I walked around to the front, and the police told me to get back in the house and lay down. And, because it was an active shooting. And I laid there for about 30 minutes, and I kept hearing gunshots go on while I was laying down there.
Calvin Thomas says police soon got him out safely before the standoff had ended. Others grew increasingly impatient as they waited for the scene to clear to check on loved ones nearby.
He was planning what experts call a suicide by cop scenario, but only after he had destroyed Rannita's life and traumatized her children forever. 40 bullets. 20 for Rannita, 20 for the officers who would try to save her. He had calculated exactly how much death he wanted to spread that morning, and he had the ammunition to make it happen. The investigator gave Robinson one final chance to explain his mindset, asking him to elaborate on his claim of premeditation. What came next was perhaps the most chilling moment of the entire confession. I knew what I was doing. I was in my right mind. I knew I was going to kill her, Robinson said, his voice never wavering. I ain't dumb. I ain't dumb by far. He wasn't claiming mental illness. He wasn't blaming drugs or alcohol. He was telling investigators that he had made a conscious, calculated decision to end Rannita Williams' life, and he wanted full credit for that choice. When asked if he thought he deserved to be charged with first-degree murder, he responded with absolute certainty. Yeah, I knew what I was doing. Robinson planned this murder while most of you were probably scrolling social media that same morning. If you can handle hearing how a killer's mind actually works, subscribe and comment premeditated. Unless you think domestic violence planning isn't worth your attention, then explain in the comments why you won't subscribe to content that exposes these patterns. When Jonathan Robinson kicked down the door of Rannita Williams' home on Natalie Street, he didn't just come to kill her. He came to humiliate her first. He had a script in his mind, a twisted performance he wanted the world to witness, and Rannita was going to be his unwilling star. Go live, he commanded, pointing the rifle at her as she trembled in her own living room. Apologize to her. Rannita knew exactly who her was. Sharika Taylor, Robinson's new girlfriend from Houston, Texas. The woman he had chosen to replace her with. Now, with a gun trained on her body, Rannita was being forced to broadcast her own degradation to anyone who happened to be scrolling Facebook that Thursday morning. Think about the psychological torture of that moment. Rannita had to open her phone, start a live stream, and perform contrition for a relationship that had already ended. She had to apologize to another woman for existing, for having a history with the man who was about to murder her. And she had to do it all while staring down the barrel of a rifle. As Rannita's shaking fingers activated the Facebook Live feature, viewers began joining the stream. They thought they were tuning into typical social media drama, maybe a relationship argument or some neighborhood gossip. Instead, they became witnesses to a woman's final moments on Earth. The comments started rolling in immediately. Some viewers thought it was fake, a stage performance for attention. Others realized something was terribly wrong, but didn't know how to help. A few tried to call police, but most just watched in horrified fascination as the situation escalated in real time. Rannita's voice was barely above a whisper as she spoke into the camera, her words carefully chosen under the threat of immediate death. She knew that one wrong phrase, one moment of defiance, could trigger Robinson to pull that trigger. So she performed the apology he demanded, her dignity stripped away in front of an audience that grew larger by the minute. But Robinson wasn't satisfied with just the apology. He wanted more. He wanted complete control, total submission, and he wanted everyone watching to see Rannita Williams broken before he destroyed her completely. The psychological torture continued as Robinson forced Rannita to maintain the live stream while he positioned himself behind her. Viewers could see her fear, could hear the tremor in her voice, could sense that something horrific was about to happen, but they were powerless to stop it, trapped behind their screens as unwilling participants in Robinson's twisted theater. Then the sound that would haunt viewers forever cut through the audio. The sharp crack of gunfire. Rannita's scream. The phone dropping as her body collapsed. I shot her in the leg, Robinson would later tell investigators with disturbing casualness. Then I shot her again somewhere else. But the horror wasn't over. As sirens wailed in the distance and neighbors called 911, Robinson continued his rampage. When police arrived at the scene, he opened fire on them too, turning Natalie Street into a war zone. The same viewers who had watched Rannita get shot were now witnessing a full-scale shootout between a killer and law enforcement. One officer was hit in the wrist. Robinson had 40 bullets, and he was determined to use them all. While bullets flew and Rannita Williams bled out on her living room floor, something equally disturbing was happening in the comment section of her Facebook live stream. Viewers were reacting in real time to a murder, treating it like entertainment content to be consumed and shared. Some people recorded the live stream on their own devices, preserving the horror for posterity. Others shared the video, spreading Rannita's final moments across social media platforms like wildfire. The video went viral not because people wanted to help, but because they were drawn to the shock value of watching someone die. Most viewers did absolutely nothing to help. They didn't call police. They didn't try to contact Rannita's family. They didn't report the stream to Facebook. They just watched, commented, and moved on with their day as if they hadn't just witnessed a woman's murder. This is the reality of our digital age. We've become a society of passive observers, consuming violence through our screens while remaining disconnected from the human cost. Rannita Williams became content. Her death reduced to clicks, views, and shares by people who forgot she was a real person with real children who would never see their mother again. The live stream finally ended when Robinson ran out of ammunition and surrendered to police. But the damage was done. Rannita Williams was dead, an officer was wounded, and thousands of people had watched it all happen in real time. The video continued circulating on social media for hours before Facebook finally removed it. Think about what that means. A mother of 3 was murdered on camera, and people kept sharing the footage like it was a movie trailer. Her children would grow up knowing that strangers had watched their mother die and treated it like entertainment. Robinson got exactly what he wanted. He had forced the world to witness his ultimate act of control over Rannita Williams. He had turned her death into a public spectacle, ensuring that her final moments would be remembered not for her strength or her love for her children, but for the violence he inflicted upon her. Thousands of people watched Rannita beg for her life in real time, and most did nothing. If you're not going to be another passive observer of violence against women, subscribe and comment which moment made your blood run cold. Or stay silent like those Facebook viewers did. And tell us in the comments why women's screams don't deserve your subscription. The moment Shreveport police officers pulled up to Natalie Street, they walked into Jonathan Robinson's carefully planned ambush. He had been waiting for them, rifle loaded with the second box of ammunition he had purchased that morning. This wasn't a domestic violence call anymore. This was domestic terrorism. Robinson positioned himself at the front door and opened fire on dozens of responding officers. The quiet residential neighborhood transformed into a battlefield as bullets flew in both directions. Children who should have been playing in their yards were now hiding under beds, while their parents called frantically for backup. Officers dove behind patrol cars, using whatever cover they could find as Robinson unleashed round after round from inside the house. This wasn't random violence or a panicked reaction to being caught. This was the second phase of his plan, the part he had been looking forward to since he bought those 40 bullets. He wanted to die, but he wanted to take as many people with him as possible. During his confession, Robinson made his intentions crystal clear to investigators. When asked why he was shooting at police officers, his answer was chillingly simple. I wanted to die. This wasn't about escaping justice or avoiding prison time. Robinson had orchestrated what experts call a suicide by cop scenario, but with a twisted difference. Most people who want police to kill them don't murder innocent women first. They don't turn residential neighborhoods into war zones. They don't plan elaborate shootouts designed to maximize casualties. Robinson wanted to die, but only after he had destroyed as many lives as possible. He had killed Rannita Williams to satisfy his need for control and revenge. Now he was trying to kill police officers to satisfy his death wish. Every bullet he fired was calculated. Every shot was intentional. He had turned his suicidal ideation into a weapon against everyone around him, using his desire to die as justification for taking others with him. The gunfire wasn't just noise and chaos. Robinson's bullets found their mark. One Shreveport police officer took a round to the wrist, becoming another casualty in Robinson's war against anyone who tried to stop him. The officer survived, but the injury served as a stark reminder of how close this situation came to being even more catastrophic. Think about what that officer's family went through. They sent their loved one to work that morning expecting a normal shift, maybe some traffic stops and routine calls. Instead, they got a phone call telling them their family member had been shot by a domestic terrorist who was live streaming murders on social media. The wounded officer was one of dozens who responded to what they thought was a standard domestic violence call. None of them knew they were walking into Robinson's predetermined killing field. None of them knew he had specifically bought extra ammunition just to shoot at them. For 3 agonizing hours, Robinson held his position inside Rannita's home while police surrounded the building. Neighbors were evacuated from their houses as SWAT teams took strategic positions throughout the area. What had started as a normal Thursday morning had become a full-scale crisis that shut down an entire neighborhood. During those 3 hours, Robinson had time to think about what he had done. He had time to consider surrendering peacefully. He had time to show remorse for killing Rannita Williams and shooting at police officers. Instead, he used that time to continue his standoff, keeping dozens of officers pinned down and an entire community in terror. The standoff only ended when Robinson ran out of ammunition, not because he had a change of heart or suddenly felt guilty about his actions. He surrendered because he literally had no more bullets to fire at the people trying to bring him to justice. When Robinson finally walked out of that house with his hands up, it wasn't because he had seen the error of his ways. It was because his girlfriend Sharika Taylor, the same woman he had forced Rannita to apologize to, told him to surrender. Even in his final moments of freedom, Robinson was being controlled by the dynamics of toxic relationships. The 3-hour standoff was over, but the trauma would last forever. An entire neighborhood had been terrorized. A mother was dead. Children were orphaned. An officer was wounded. All because one man couldn't handle rejection and control. Robinson turned residential streets into a war zone, but you probably drive past domestic violence every day without noticing. Subscribe if you want to recognize these warning signs before they explode. Or comment below why you think ignoring domestic terrorism in your neighborhood is acceptable. To understand why Rannita Williams died, you have to understand the toxic triangle that formed between her, Jonathan Robinson, and Sharika Taylor. This wasn't a simple case of a jealous ex-boyfriend. This was a carefully constructed web of manipulation, control, and psychological warfare that Robinson orchestrated from the beginning. Rannita and Robinson had a history together, a relationship that had ended but left Robinson unable to accept that she had moved on with a life. When he started dating Sharika Taylor from Houston, Texas, it should have been a fresh start for everyone involved. Instead, Robinson used his new relationship as a weapon against his former one. He couldn't let Rannita exist peacefully in his past. He needed her to acknowledge his new relationship, to validate his choice, to somehow participate in her own emotional destruction. Robinson wasn't just dating Sharika Taylor. He was using her as ammunition in his ongoing war against Rannita Williams, a war that would ultimately cost Rannita her life. Robinson's need for control over Rannita didn't end when their relationship did. In fact, it intensified. He couldn't stand that she was living her life without him, raising her 3 children, and moving forward while he remained stuck in the past. His relationship with Sharika Taylor became a tool to torment Rannita, a way to force her to acknowledge his power over her emotions. The forced apology live stream wasn't random violence. It was the culmination of months of psychological manipulation. Robinson wanted Rannita to publicly humiliate herself in front of his new girlfriend, to admit that she had somehow wronged Sharika by existing, by having a history with Robinson, by daring to continue living after their relationship ended. This is how abusers operate. They don't just hurt you during the relationship. They continue to punish you for leaving, for healing, for finding happiness without them. Robinson couldn't physically control Rannita anymore, so he decided to destroy her completely rather than let her live free from his influence. When news of Rannita's murder broke, something predictable and disgusting happened in comment sections across social media. People started asking the wrong questions. Instead of focusing on Robinson's premeditated violence, they wanted to know about Rannita's relationship history. Instead of condemning a killer, they were analyzing a victim. Why was she involved with him in the first place? What did she do to make him so angry? She must have known he was dangerous. These are the questions that society asks when women are murdered by men who claim to love them. We dissect the victim's choices while giving the perpetrator's violence a pass. The SideChick narrative made it even worse. Some people actually suggested that Rannita deserved what happened because she had been involved with a man who was now dating someone else. As if having a romantic history with someone gives them the right to murder you. As if being labeled the other woman makes your life worth less than nothing. Let's be absolutely clear about who the villain was in this triangle. It wasn't Rannita Williams, who was trying to raise her children and move on with her life. It wasn't Sharika Taylor, who had no idea she was dating a man capable of premeditated murder. The villain was Jonathan Robinson, the man who decided that his inability to control his emotions justified ending another human being's life. Robinson manipulated both women. He used Sharika as a weapon against Rannita, forcing his new girlfriend to become an unwilling participant in his revenge fantasy. He made Sharika believe that Rannita owed her an apology, that somehow Rannita's existence was a threat to their relationship. Then he forced Rannita to perform that apology at gunpoint before murdering her on camera. Both women were victims of Robinson's manipulation. The only difference is that Rannita paid for it with her life, while Sharika had to live with the knowledge that her boyfriend had used her as justification for murder. This is what toxic masculinity looks like when it reaches its logical conclusion. A man who couldn't handle rejection, couldn't accept that a woman had moved on without him, and couldn't find a healthy way to process his emotions. So he chose violence. He chose murder. He chose to destroy lives rather than deal with his own psychological problems. Rannita Williams wasn't a side chick, a homewrecker, or a woman who got what she deserved. She was a mother of 3 who had the audacity to exist after ending a relationship with a man who believed he owned her. Her only crime was trying to live her life without Jonathan Robinson's permission. Society loves to blame the other woman instead of the man who pulled the trigger. If you're mature enough to understand that Rannita wasn't the villain in this triangle, subscribe and comment, victim not villain. Or maybe you think murdered women deserve blame. Explain that logic in the comments while refusing to subscribe. Months after Rannita Williams was murdered on Facebook Live, Jonathan Robinson finally got his wish. He had been trying to plead guilty from the very beginning, but prosecutors initially sought the death penalty, which legally prevented him from entering a guilty plea. Robinson had to wait, shackled and remorseful, for the legal system to decide his fate. When Caddo Parish prosecutors finally dropped their pursuit of the death penalty, Robinson immediately seized the opportunity. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. An additional 100 years was tacked on for shooting at police officers during a standoff. This wasn't a plea bargain born out of legal strategy or an attempt to avoid responsibility. Robinson genuinely wanted to be held accountable for what he had done. He had confessed within hours of a murder, and now he was accepting the consequences of his premeditated actions without fighting the charges or blaming anyone else. After the judge handed down his sentence, Robinson did something that surprised everyone in the courtroom. As bailiffs prepared to escort him back to his cell for the rest of his natural life, he asked to speak directly to Rannita's mother, Rannita Williams. More than a dozen bailiffs had been stationed throughout the courtroom, expecting potential outbursts or violence from the man who had terrorized an entire neighborhood. Instead, they watched as Robinson broke down in tears and addressed the woman whose daughter he had murdered. "I'm so sorry I did what I did," Robinson said, his voice cracking with emotion as he looked at Rannita Williams. "I know I hurt a lot of people myself. I hope one day you forgive me for what I did." This wasn't the cold, calculating killer who had confessed to premeditation. This was a broken man finally confronting the full weight of what he had taken from the world when he decided to end Rannita's life. What happened next defied every expectation of how a grieving mother should respond to her daughter's killer. Rannita Williams, who had spent months processing the most unimaginable loss a parent can endure, looked directly at the man who had destroyed her family and said words that stunned the entire courtroom. "I forgave you already," she said through her own tears. Robinson apologized a second time, his voice barely audible as he struggled with his emotions. Again, Rannita Williams responded with grace that seemed impossible under the circumstances. "I accept your apology." This wasn't weakness or denial. This was a mother who had made a conscious choice to refuse to let Robinson's hatred consume what was left of her life. She had already lost her daughter to his violence. She wasn't going to lose herself to his poison. Her forgiveness wasn't for Robinson's benefit. It was for her own healing and her ability to move forward. Before being led away forever, Robinson offered one final apology. "I'm sorry for the police's too." Even in his remorse, he acknowledged that his violence had extended far beyond Rannita Williams to the officers who had risked their lives trying to stop him. The plea agreement represented a form of justice that satisfied everyone involved. Robinson got the accountability he had been seeking since the day of the murder. Anita Williams got closure without having to endure years of death penalty appeals and retrials. The community got the assurance that Robinson would never walk free again. Anita Williams later revealed that she had never wanted the death penalty for her daughter's killer. "I didn't believe in killing nobody. I never believed in killing nobody. Not just him, nobody," she explained outside the courthouse. Her opposition to capital punishment wasn't about protecting Robinson. It was about refusing to let more violence be committed in her daughter's name. Robinson had reached out to Anita Williams at least 3 times from jail before the sentencing, seeking forgiveness that she had already granted in her heart. "I forgive him. I forgive him. But I never will forget," she said, capturing the complex reality of healing after unimaginable loss. Anita Williams found the strength to forgive her daughter's killer, but most of you can't even find the strength to subscribe to content that honors victims. Hit subscribe and comment "Forgiveness is power" if you understand real strength. Or tell us in the comments why a grieving mother's grace isn't worth your subscription.
Didn't know it was going to happen. Just never shared it with nobody because I knew what I wanted in my heart and what I believe in. I didn't believe in killing nobody. I never believed in killing nobody. Not just him, nobody. Not even an enemy. So why? No, I'm glad justice has been served. Everything is gone. Everything is okay. So I feel a lot better now. Now I can rest. Now me and my family can go on with our life, you know. It's over with. It's no more. So it's nothing else to talk. The decision has been made between us and everybody else. So we feel a lot better. It hurts me. It hurts me so bad. By killing Jonathan, it's not going to bring Rannita back. None whatsoever. So decision has been made, and that's what it is.
When did the DA let you know that this would happen?
We have been talking about it about months. We have been talking about months. He had asked me my decision, and he gave me his decision. So at the end of the day, the decision that was made was my decision. So no one else could look at the DA, no one else, no other different. I made that decision. So that is what it is.
Did Robinson reach out to you anyway?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I never let no one know. It was privacy. Every time he reached out to me, I never let no one know. This wasn't the first time he apologized to me. It's about the 3rd time with letters and writing. I just never let no one know what was going on with me. From this time on, it was just private. Whatever went on, it was private between me and my family. Yes, he did reach out, and I forgive him. I forgive him. But I never will forget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.